you have $1 million in cash, then yes, technically speaking, you are a millionaire. It's almost axiomatic, a precondition to being a millionaire. You have $1 million. But do you? If you have cash flowing real estate, then you really have the same issues as someone who earns $1 million a year in other professions. If you're not investing that money back into the business, paying down the equity in the properties that you own, then you really have a ton of debt and a lot of overhead, but also a lot of cash flow. And if real estate goes sideways, you could end up in a really bad situation. See Dave Ramsey. Are you really a millionaire? In the circles I swim in, there are a lot of people who claim to be millionaires, and as someone who's used to providing a little bit of pushback here and there, I like to challenge their assumptions and the assumptions that a lot of people make about their wealth accumulation. I'm a little bit of a troll, if you will, but that makes for a great YouTube video. So let's dive into it. The definition of a millionaire can vary from person to person. I think there are some general standards that we all should be able to listen to and agree on. For example, are you someone who made $1 million in their lifetime? If you think about it, that's actually not that hard to do. $20,000 a year over a 50-year period is $1 million. And if you break it down even further, $20,000 in a year divided by approximately 52.14 roughly, the average number of weeks in a year, that comes out to $383.58 a week. If you work 40 hours in a week, that comes to just over $9.58 an hour. So basically, roughly around the national minimum wage here in the United States, depending on where you live. So by that definition, if you start working at age 17 and retire at 67, if your definition of being a millionaire is you earn $1 million in your lifetime, then just about every person in the United States is a millionaire. Hard to believe, but if you subscribe to that counting mechanism, it's true. So congratulations, you're a millionaire. That said though, most finance people don't think of millionaires that way. Some people think they are millionaires if they make $1 million in a year. That's sort of the same as someone who makes $1 million over 50 years. You're really just talking about increasing the rate at which you earn. Keep in mind that if you overspend, you don't save or invest, or get yourself into unmanageable debt, then it really doesn't matter what rate at which you make your money. If you spend more than what you make, you're gonna not have that money around. For example, if you made $1 million in 1 year, but you spent $1,001 that same year, you're actually $1 in the hole. So are you a millionaire because you earn that much money? Or are you a millionaire because you keep your $1 million? One of the more common ways that people describe millionaires is the assets that they own. One of the ways that you keep your money. So are you actually a millionaire if you own, let's say, $1 million in real estate? If you own $1 million in real estate, for example, $1 million house that you live in, you can be considered a millionaire if you own the house. If your equity in that house is not 100%, then technically you're not a millionaire because the amount that your house is worth is a little bit different than how much of that house that you own. You're on your way there, technically speaking. The bank that loaned you the money to then purchase the house believes that you will be a millionaire one day. They believe that the amount of money that you spend with them will definitely be worth $1 million over the course of your relationship with each other. That said, you're not there yet. This is true even if you're investing in real estate and not simply just buying a house that you live in. If you have cash flowing real estate, then you really have the same issues as someone who earns $1 million a year in other professions. If you're not investing that money back into the business, paying down the equity in the properties that you own, then you really have a ton of debt and a lot of overhead, but also a lot of cash flow. And if real estate goes sideways, you could end up in a really bad situation. See Dave Ramsey. Are you a millionaire if you own $1 million in stocks? Millions in stocks was also awesome. It's great to look at it in your Robinhood or Charles Schwab, Webull account, etc. But there really is only a millionaire on paper. The value of those assets is dependent on the sentiment of other investors. The level of volatility in the stock market, whether you're in a bear market or a bull market, can and does affect the value of your portfolio. So in that instance, you're really only a millionaire on paper, unless you sell those stocks. And when and until you sell those stocks, you're simply just going to be that, someone who has $1 million on paper. And once you do sell, well, that's when all sorts of fees and taxes come into play, particularly if your stock holdings are in a tax-sheltered vehicle like a 401k, and you're not of retirement age. The taxes and fees associated with owning an appreciating asset like stocks, well, not all that complicated. You have your capital gains. There are various other taxes that will affect you. But for 401k, if you take your money out early, if you have a $1 million 401k account, that is, and take your money out early, you're subject to penalties, like a 10% penalty if you're not, I believe it's 65 years of age. Also, and that $1 million outlay that you pulled out of your 401k account, that is then applied to your income for that year. So your tax level could go up significantly. And depending on whether or not you're already at the highest tax bracket, that really could affect your taxable income. What about if you're a millionaire in crypto? Being a millionaire in crypto is similar to being a millionaire with stocks. The sentiment of the market affects the value of crypto. The issue is that crypto is not a commodity. Yet, we can go into that at another time. It's not a company that you have a share of, in most cases. Again, we can go over that at a different time. So if the sentiment goes bad, you really don't have anything to fall back on. There's no cash flow, you can't smelt it down to make a mirror or anything of that nature. You really don't have much except the fact that you have ones and zeros on a distributed ledger somewhere. Now, sure, there's a whole ecosystem around non-fungible tokens that crypto supports. There's also the idea of Web 3.0 and the metaverse, which are all concepts around which crypto will be a major player in finances in the years to come. Most likely, depending on how regulations shake out in the near future. So you could think of it as a commodity in that respect, but also, if those sorts of things become ubiquitous, then naturally their value will fall as well. Unless, of course, you are a deflationary asset like Bitcoin. Now, what is a deflationary asset and why is Bitcoin deflationary? Where Tether is not? Well, it's about true scarcity. And even gold's not truly scarce. Stablecoins like Tether are designed to fluctuate in price. Their value is linked to the fiat currency that they're tethered to. Other coins are purposely inflationary to reflect growth in an economy. Whether that is the correct policy is another discussion. But if you have $1 million in a deflationary asset like Bitcoin, then yes, you are a millionaire by the most common definition. Well, almost. You see, just like having $1 million in a commodity doesn't necessarily make you a millionaire. It's very similar to why having $1 million in a commodity doesn't necessarily make you a millionaire. Let's look at people who own millions in gold. If you own $1 million in gold, i.e. commodities, a gold IRA, or a gold 401k, well, gold and silver, they seem like they have the capability to maintain their value, and thus your millionaire status. After all, gold has been valuable for thousands of years, right? Well, if you own $1 million in a commodity, like gold and silver, well, those commodities, they're not really all that liquid, particularly physical commodities, especially if you think of the cost of storage. But physical commodities also suffer from an investor-consumer sentiment. At one point in history, aluminum was more valuable than gold. Nowadays, other commodities are starting to catch fire, particularly for green tech. Some other rare earth metals may in fact be worth more than gold. And the value of gold could actually plummet at some point, because there is a chance that people at some point will start to think that gold's not as valuable as everyone says it is. But maybe you're thinking, I have $1 million in cash. Surely I'm a millionaire then. If you have $1 million in cash, then yes, technically speaking, you are a millionaire. It's almost axiomatic, a precondition of being a millionaire. You have $1 million. But do you? In 1913, $1 million is approximately $30 million today. Now, there are various metrics to measure inflation, but purchasing power parity is the one that comes up with that metric the most. That said, though, there are anecdotal accounts from back in the day that suggest that inflation was or is even worse than we think. For example, Andrew Carnegie purchasing a house for $700. Today, there are very few, if any, houses that can purchase for less than $100,000. I know some people can get a decent trailer park between $30,000 and $50,000, but that is a whole lot of inflation in the housing market in just over 120 years. So $1 million today is not the same as $1 million from 100 years ago. The amount of value you can get from that $1 million is much lower. You could buy a profitable, medium-sized factory for $1 million in 1913. Nowadays, you'll be lucky to own a studio apartment on 5th Avenue in New York City for that kind of cash. Heck, you're gonna have a hard time finding a good apartment in downtown Dallas for $1 million. So yes, you are a millionaire if you literally have $1 million. But let's just say they don't make them like they used to. This is why your focus should not be on the dollar amount, the yen, the euro, the peso, or the size of your wealth. You really should focus on how much value you provide to people, which will grow your wealth naturally. And after that, how to use that money to grow your money more. I have a video on that topic, as a matter of fact, if you'd like to check it out. And remember, a goal without a plan is a wish. A goal with a plan and no action is a wish list. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Peace.